Also, kind of misunderstood. We're talking about urea, a super powerful tool for feeding animals like cattle and sheep. Okay, so let's just start with a bit of a brain teaser. What if you could give an animal everything it needs to build high-quality protein, but you use a compound that has zero actual protein in it? It sounds like a magic trick, right? But for some animals, it's just another day at the office, all thanks to urea. So here's our game plan. First, we'll tackle what we call the protein problem. Then we'll introduce urea as the synthetic fix. After that, we'll get into why it's so powerful, but also pretty risky. Then we'll cover the smart way to use it. And finally, we'll see what it actually looks like on an animal's menu. All right, first up, the protein problem. And really, this boils down to a massive challenge. How do we feed a growing world and the animals that help feed us? Here's the heart of it. The traditional stuff we use for animal feed, things like oil cakes and grains, well, they're getting a lot more expensive and a lot harder to get. And that's a huge problem for farmers trying to run a business. And that's our cue. This leads us right to the solution, urea, the synthetic protein. This is where science really steps in with a game-changing idea. Okay, so this all hinges on a concept called non-protein nitrogen, or NPN for short. The easiest way to think about it is this. It's not protein, but it carries the one key ingredient, nitrogen, that the tiny microbes in a cow's stomach need to build their own protein. In urea, it's the most popular NPN on the market. And get a load of this. I mean, look at the sheer power packed into this stuff. Pure urea has a crude protein equivalent of 291%. That is not a typo. It's a massive amount of protein potential packed into a really small package. So how in the world does this work? Well, inside a cow or sheep's first stomach chamber, the rumen, live billions of microorganisms. And you can think of these little guys as tiny protein factories. When you add urea to their diet, they grab the nitrogen from it and use it to build their own microbial protein, which the animal then digests for nourishment. It's an amazing little system. But, and this is a big but, all that incredible power comes with a serious warning label. That brings us to our next section, fast, potent, and risky. You have to understand, urea is a total double-edged sword. Here's why. The second urea hits the rumen, an enzyme called urease just goes to town on it. And this enzyme breaks the urea down into ammonia, fast. And I mean really fast. The reaction is almost instant. But that speed creates a big question. Those little microbe factories, they can only work so hard. So what happens if there's a sudden flood of ammonia that just completely overwhelms them? Well, the answer is ammonia toxicity, and it is incredibly dangerous. The leftover ammonia gets absorbed into the animal's blood, and it leads to some really awful symptoms. We're talking muscle tremors, losing coordination, bloat, even trouble breathing. This is exactly why you can't just toss urea into feed without a serious plan. Okay, so that sounds pretty scary. But knowing the risks, how do we use this powerful tool the right way? And that leads us to the smart feeding strategy. It's all about being safe and effective. Rule number 1, and this is the big one, it is absolutely non-negotiable. You have to include a source of readily available energy in the diet. So remember those tiny protein factories? Well, they need fuel to run. Energy from things like grain, starch, or molasses gives them that fuel. It lets the microbes grab that ammonia from the urea and turn it into protein before it can build up and become toxic. Okay, on to rule number 2. This one is all about getting the recipe right. When you use urea, you also have to supplement the diet with sulfur. And this is where it gets really specific. See, some of the most important protein building blocks, amino acids, actually contain sulfur. Urea only brings nitrogen to the party. Without sulfur, the microbes can't build these critical amino acids. The magic number to aim for is a ratio of about 15 parts nitrogen to 1 part sulfur. And this brings up a bigger point. It's best to think of urea as a specialist. It is fantastic at providing nitrogen, but that's all it does. It has no energy, no minerals, no vitamins. So when you use it, you absolutely have to make sure you're adding all that other essential stuff back into the diet. All right, we've got this science down. Now for our last section. What does this all look like in the real world? Let's take a look at urea on the menu. So there are basically 2 main ways to serve it up. First, you can mix it into tri-feed. The big danger there is creating toxic hotspots if you don't mix it perfectly. The other way is to dissolve it in a liquid, like molasses. That creates a nice, even mixture, so every single bite has a safe amount. Now, if you're going with a dry mix, you have to follow the rules. To the letter. As you can see, urea should never be more than 1% of the concentrate mix, and you don't want to go over about 136 grams per day for a big animal. And I'm going to say it again because it's that important. You have to mix it thoroughly. No shortcuts. For a liquid supplement, it's kind of like following a recipe. You dissolve the urea in water first, then you blend that into a big batch of molasses. After that, you sprinkle in salt, a mineral mix, and boost it with some key vitamins to make it a safe and complete supplement. You know, technology has also given us some pretty clever solutions. These advanced feeders put the liquid mix in a tank with a floating ball on top. The animal can only lick the ball, which naturally rations how much they get. It's a great way to control intake and keep them safe. Which really leaves us with one final thought. Urea is this incredible piece of science, right? It's a synthetic compound solving a very real natural problem. It could help make farming more sustainable. But all that power requires incredible precision and respect. So, is this the future? Or is it a delicate balancing act we're all still trying to perfect? Thanks for watching.